Just about everybody needs to make a trade right now. Just about everybody's looking for a way that can bolster the lineup, bolster their roster, and really help solidify their team for the future, trying to get into the playoffs, trying to win that championship. Today, we're going to look at 5 wide receivers to trade for. I did another video like this yesterday, but this one is covering 5 wide receivers on a sample from the last 3 weeks. Week 8, 7, and 6. And we're using thresholds from the air yards model, 200 or more air yards in those weeks. And I took the 5 worst players from that list. And we're going straight from the spreadsheet for the results. And what I do is I just filter sort through the spreadsheet. I put up the 5 guys. They're not my guys. They're not guys I'm trying to buy or sell, but I'll argue with the spreadsheet. That way, everything's a little bit more ambiguous, more thought out to what the numbers are telling us. And then I'll go over it with you guys and give you some of my thoughts, some of my opinions. Sometimes I argue with the spreadsheet, sometimes I don't, but let's get it cracking. First guy we're going to talk about today, Romeo Dobbs, Doobs, whatever you want to call him. I've heard everything. Interesting character at the wide receiver position, was blowing up in preseason. He's had his moments this year. Just one of those rookies who just flutter up and down. Last 3 weeks, 22 fantasy points, 7.4 per game, 20 targets, 18.9% target share, not too bad. Wish there was more volume in the Packers offense. 254 air yards, which is pretty solid. Not too shabby for 3 weeks. 31.1% share of the air yards. With 254 air yards, you can tell that this is a lower volume passing offense. A 92.4 route participation rate. Not bad at all. It's caught 8 balls for 83 yards. So the thing here that we got 22 fantasy points here over 3 games indicates that he's a buy low because the production's down. But the air yards is trending up a little bit, which is an indicator that we're getting enough workload that he can provide some fantasy results. And the fact that his production is down means you might be able to catch him discount and trade. Maybe in a bigger trade. Maybe you're trading running backs and maybe you say, hey, can you throw in Romeo Doubs? Can you throw him in there? Let's see what happens. It might be one of those types of deals. Maybe it allows that other fantasy owner to have an open spot for them to pick somebody up off waivers. Maybe their running back's valued a little bit more, yours a little less. Maybe something like that. That's probably something you could do for Romeo Doubs. I don't know if there's really anything one-for-one you can do right now for him. He might be on the waivers on some teams too. He might be on waivers in some leagues as well. I haven't checked the roster rate on him. He shouldn't really be, but depending on leagues, things can get a little iffy. May want to check that. But it looks like a guy that you might be able to trade for. The workload's there, and I could understand paying up a little bit for him, but I wouldn't go all in either because wide receivers, you can really play the matchups with them and just hope for the best. Next guy on the spreadsheet is DK Metcalf, coming back from a knee injury. Had some good weeks lately. 25 fantasy points last 3 weeks. Week 6, 7, and 8. 8.4 per game. 19 targets. 21.3% target share. 259 air yards. 38.4% share of the team's passing air yards over the last 3 weeks. That's with him missing some time with that knee. 66.1 route participation rate. Caught 9 balls, 101 yards. DK Metcalf, I don't know if you can really even buy low on him. I don't think he's really even a buy low. I think volatility is expected with DK Metcalf, and he's not a guy you're going to catch on the cheap. I think up and down games are expected, and with him being on Seattle's offense, you might be able to sneak him away with the right deal in the right league. Maybe if you're in more of a chalkier league, if you're not swimming with the Sharks, maybe if you are swimming with the Sharks and you're trying to throw somebody fancy that you don't like too well, to pry DK Metcalf away. But he does give you some boom weeks. You're going to get some volatility. That's just part of the game. 25 points in 3 weeks, but the workload's there. But if you want to go after him, at least you know he's one of the tops in the leagues in air yards over the last 3 weeks, which is something that can be very enticing. Next guy we're going to talk about, Deontay Johnson, he's on these lists a lot. I think this is like third or fourth time we did one of these buy low lists, and he was on there. Usually in the 1 weeker or the one where we go over 3 or 4 weeks like today. Deontay Johnson's on here a lot. He owns a large portion of the workload here in Pittsburgh, and he always has a decent target share here. 23.9% over the last 3 weeks. 8.9 PPR fantasy points per game from week 6, 7, and 8. 26 targets. He's always going to get that workload. It's just he doesn't have a high average depth of target. And then Kenny Pickett, transition at quarterback. It's just going to make things iffy. It's going to make things up and down for some of these wide receivers. He's also got 15 balls for 105 yards during this time. You might be able to catch him on the cheap. You might be able to. You're just going to have to kick the tires and see what happens with him. But if this is a wide receiver you're interested in, he is getting workload. He is getting opportunity. The scoring isn't living up to the opportunity. You got to remember the quarterback play here isn't the greatest. It's volatile. It's developing. So you're going to have your ups and your downs. But he is a wide receiver getting workload. If you want to catch it on the cheap, probably much like the Romeo Dobbs trade or Dobbs, you just want to be creative here, because it's going to be hard to get a deal done 1-for-1 unless you want to gamble and switch out your wide receiver for him, which means you're probably going to have to give up a wide receiver who's valued a little bit more to get him. But that's just something you may have to do, because lateral moves are sometimes hard to do. Lateral moves is hard to get someone interested to do, so you may have to sweeten it up a little bit. Next guy here is Darius Slayton. I've seen some people ask about him in the comments in a few videos back. I think it was when I was talking about Wan'Dale Robinson. The big thing about Darius Slayton, he's an air yards guy. Gets downfield, makes plays happen. Big part of his collegiate profile coming out of, I think, Auburn. 4.3, 40-yard dash. Came in as a rookie, had some production, and it was the deep play, the deep ball, the air yards. We're seeing it now coming in to fruition here in 2022. 17.6% target share on 15 targets, 204 air yards. 204 air yards versus 202 air yards of Deontay Johnson's off 26 targets. So less targets, a hefty amount of air yards, which got him on the report. 29.2 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points per game, 75% route participation rate. So he's on the field, he's running routes. Really wish a higher target share here, but he is getting the deep ball. I think he'd be great for tournaments in DFS. I think he's a good DFS wide receiver that you can catch on the cheap on some weeks. You throw him in there to bolster the rest of your lineup. He's probably on waivers in some leagues. I don't think he's an easy guy to pick up. You're going to have to drop somebody for him that's probably holds more value. I look at him as a guy that you throw in your lineup, whether it's DFS, deeper league, or you're hurting, and he's in a prime matchup. You close your eyes, and you just hope that he catches a couple deep balls here, get you some points, but there is some opportunity here. The 17% target share is decent, not the sexiest, but as long as he's getting targets downfield, he's going to hold some value. I think his value is best as that volatile DFS play, as a cheap option that if he hits on those air yards, converts those, and then the rest of your lineup hits because he allowed you to get some studs in there, then you could be making some money. I'm talking about tournament-wise. Cash games, you kind of want to play a little different, but usually on tournaments, you kind of want that contrarian piece, and sometimes a cheap contrarian piece, a guy getting those air yards, is something that could help you out. The last guy here in the spot here, Damiere Byrd, has had a couple good games as of late. 7 targets last 3 weeks. Most of the stuff came in his last 2. 30 fantasy points, averaging 10 per game. But again, it came in the last 2 weeks. Both double-digit performances in PPR. 231 air yards, so they're slinging it deep. 47.9% share of the Falcons' passing air yards, and that's on 7 targets, and that's over 3 games. That's hilarious. That's an hilarious stat. There was that one game where Atlanta was just running the ball like crazy, and then last week they were just chucking it down. 38.8 route participation rate. These numbers don't even make sense, but they happen. This is real life. A 38% route participation rate, 7 targets, but damn near 50% of the air yards. Damn, those are some funny numbers. Can this be consistent going forward? Probably not with the low volume offense they got here, but you want to monitor this. You want to see what happens. Probably more for deeper leagues. Your basic redraft leagues is going to be very hard to want to roster them. DFS, maybe in prime matchups. I wouldn't bank on it, but he's going to be damn near free. So you're talking about a free square who might be getting air yards. You want to maybe check some games, see if this turns into something consistent. But as a DFS play for tournaments, if he's damn near free and he has another big game and your studs hit, you might be on to something. I think it's just a guy you just throw in a couple lineups, though. I'm not banking on this happening much throughout the rest of the season, but I could see this happening again, especially if this starts to become a trend. We don't have enough sample size to know that, but it could happen if it does, if they want to keep using them deep. But as of right now, we want to just see what's happening with them. If he continues to get air yards like this over what he was doing in these last couple games, then you're probably going to want to roster him somewhere in some of these leagues. Maybe not your basic redraft league. Maybe so. Really depends on how hurting you are. If he's consistently getting deep balls, consistently scoring, then we may have to take him more seriously. Right now, DFS guy, just to be contrarian. To recap here are the 5 wide receivers we're trying to buy low on. Romeo Dobbs, cheaper wide receiver due to lack of production over the last 3 weeks. Might be able to get him in trade if you want to be creative. I would not blow my wad on him, though. Not a guy I'm actively searching for, but I can make cases where you could trade for him. DK Metcalf, he's going to be hard to trade for. I think the volatility is already baked into his stock, his portfolio here, and a lot of fantasy gamers knew that coming in, so they're just expecting these spike weeks and down moments. Deontay Johnson, you're going to have to get creative with, but you might be able to get a deal done with him considering how volatile he's been throughout the season. I've had people comment on some of my videos asking if they can drop him before. That is something you want to keep in mind. Really depends on who you're playing with, what you're dealing with, but I wouldn't go out searching for him. I would look for him as the ancillary piece in a trade of something bigger, though. Darius Slayton, probably waiver wire guy. I wouldn't be actively going after him. More of a DFS play. Jameer Byrd, just watch him a little bit. I wouldn't be going after him in redraft, really. I'd be looking at him as a contrarian DFS play, but if I'm doing hundreds of lineups, it's probably where I'd be using him in like 1 or 2 of those, like maybe 2% of lineups or something like that. But a cheap guy nonetheless. But this is today's wide receivers that we're going to buy. We got 5 of them. Let me know what you think in the comments, who you're trying to buy low on. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. It's only going to help you going forward. Going to drop you trade scenarios. Going to drop a running back one probably sometime this week. And more videos coming at you for waiver wire and trades. Also, if you're looking for a running back to pick up, check the video over here. Click on that and see if you want to pick him up too off waivers. But I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.